There's a particular kind of fear that doesn't come from the dark. It doesn't come from things that go bump in the night or shadows that move on their own. It comes from the realization that another human being has been watching you and encroaching in your space. Marcus and Diane learned that lesson in the bayou outside New Orleans. If they'd learned it one night later, we might not have their story to tell at all. Marcus Webb and Diane Collier were the kind of couple who traveled on a budget and didn't apologize for it. In 2019, they were planning a weekend getaway for Halloween and wanted an Airbnb near New Orleans. The French Quarter listings averaged $400 a night. Diane, who had a talent for finding the overlooked corners of any search page, scrolled until she found it. It was a listing for a quiet, secluded Creole cottage. The photos showed a white wooden cottage with dark green shutters, string lights on the porch, and Spanish moss in the trees. It looked like a painting. What made it even more appealing was the price, $58 a night. The catch was that it was an hour and a half outside New Orleans, past the kind of roads that look fine on a map but tell a different story in person. They weren't deterred. The host, listed only as Tarot and without a profile photo, confirmed their booking almost immediately. The message was short with no pleasantries. Confirmed. Key is under the left planter. Gate code is 1924. Enjoy your stay. They drove down from Baton Rouge on a Thursday afternoon. About 40 minutes into the backroad portion of the drive, their GPS and cell phone signals began fading in and out. They pulled into a small gas station. An older man in his late 60s was working the register. He came out to help with the pump, and he and Marcus struck up a conversation. Marcus mentioned that they were heading to a rental cottage 30 minutes further down the road. The man's expression didn't change dramatically, but, rather, it was the careful stillness of someone choosing their words. He confirmed they were going further east, nodded slowly, then looked at Marcus directly and told him to be careful. He said that the locals didn't take well to outsiders, and instructed them to close their windows at night, lock their doors, and don't talk to anyone. Marcus thanked him but dismissed the warning, and they continued their drive. The cottage was genuinely beautiful in the way that isolated things sometimes are. The trees were old, the porch was wide, and there was a stillness to the property that felt less like peace and more like holding your breath. They found the key under the left planter. Inside, the cottage was clean and simply furnished with fresh linens, folded towels, and a few unlit candles on the dresser. They dropped their bags, opened wine on the porch, and watched the sunset over the tree line. By 7, they were in the car, heading into New Orleans. The candles, as far as either of them could remember, were unlit when they left. They got back to the cottage a little after midnight. Diane noticed it first. Both candles on the bedroom dresser had been burned, and 1 inch to 1.5 inches of wax was gone. That's the kind of burn time that normally takes hours. She stood in the doorway staring at them. Marcus maintained that he hadn't lit them. They checked the rest of the cottage. Nothing was broken. The door and windows were all locked from the inside, the way they'd left them. A few small things were out of place. Marcus's phone charger, left on the kitchen counter, was now on the floor beside the couch. Diane's toiletry bag had moved from the sink to the back of the toilet. Her novel, left open face down to hold her page, was now closed. The bookmark was gone. Individually, each thing had an explanation, but together, they didn't. They checked the door locks twice and went to bed. Marcus didn't know why he woke up at 2 in the morning. There wasn't any sound, just the sudden, complete consciousness that sometimes comes in the night like a switch being thrown. He got up to get water. The kitchen window faced the tree line at the back of the property. He was filling his glass at the sink when he saw it. A shape in the tree line, maybe 40 feet out, standing just inside the shadow of the brush where the property lights didn't reach. It appeared to be a man standing completely still, facing the cottage. Marcus set down his glass and waited for some kind of movement. It didn't move. He opened the back door and called out. No response. He called again. Nothing. He grabbed the flashlight and shone it toward the tree line, but the beam fell short, swallowed up by the dark before it reached the figure. He could still see the shape, standing, watching. He went back inside and locked the door. He almost woke Diane but decided not to. He told himself it was a neighbor, someone taking a late-night walk. Eventually, he fell back asleep. Diane woke at 3:18 a.m. to the sound of her own phone. It was Siri activated and speaking aloud in the darkness. She grabbed her phone. The Siri interface was active, as if a prompt had just been spoken to it. Her phone had been on the nightstand, face down. Something would have had to trigger it. Then she noticed something through the gap at the bottom of the bedroom door. The kitchen light looked brighter in one area, as if the back door had been left open to the outside. She shook Marcus awake. They moved into the kitchen. The back door was open, but not as if it had been forced. It was just open. The latch was hanging free, and the warm night air moved slowly through the screen. Marcus checked the yard and tree line, but there was nothing. They spent Friday in New Orleans and tried to let the city reset them. By afternoon, they'd mostly convinced themselves the candles were a maintenance person. The door was faulty, and the figure was a neighbor. They got back to the cottage around 10. As they walked into the kitchen, they looked out of the window and saw the figure there. He was roughly in the same spot he was the prior night and stood perfectly still, just watching. This time Diane saw it too. Marcus stepped off the porch and called out, but there was no response. He called again, louder. Still nothing. Then a sound came out of the dark from the exact place where the figure stood. It was a low, hollow hoot that was almost like an owl call, but not quite. It was a sound a person makes when they want you to think it's an animal. Marcus called out again. The man hooted in response. Marcus walked toward the figure. This time, he was close enough for the flashlight to cross his face. The figure was wearing a dark ski mask. Enraged, Marcus moved forward to confront the man, but Diane convinced him to go inside. They locked the back door, the front door, and every window. For the first time, they locked the bedroom door too. In the deep middle of the night, Marcus heard the bedroom door handle move. Not a rattle, not a pounding, a slow, deliberate turn. It was the kind of motion that tests whether a door is locked before committing to anything else. He was out of bed before he was fully awake. He pulled the door open hard. The hallway was empty. He moved through the kitchen. Nothing was disturbed. Then he looked at the back door. Open again. He had thrown the bolt himself. He closed it, locked it, and stood in the kitchen for a long time staring at it. Then he messaged Tarot through the Airbnb app. He kept it factual. He said that the belongings moved and told him about the figure and the door found open twice. The reply came faster than he expected. This is a very safe property. I've never had any issues with guests before. The local wildlife can seem startling at first, especially at night. You are absolutely safe. Enjoy the rest of your stay. Marcus read it twice, and then showed the message to Diane. They stayed in the city as late as they could on Saturday. They told themselves it was their last night there and that they just needed to sleep. They returned to the cottage just after midnight. The door was locked, everything appeared normal, but inside was different. Their belongings were scattered and clothes from their bags were spread across the floor. Marcus's wallet was on the kitchen counter, but all of the cash was gone. Diane's camera was also gone. Diane insisted they leave immediately. Marcus had been drinking and knew he couldn't drive an hour and a half on dark back roads. They'd sleep a few hours and then leave. They kept the lights in the living room and hallway on, got into bed fully dressed, and turned off the bedroom light. No sooner had they settled in when they heard it. A low, hollow hoot coming from the bedroom closet. They exchanged one glance. Marcus grabbed Diane and they bolted out the front door, leaving all of their belongings. They also left the lights on. Diane drove. She watched the side mirror as they pulled out, expecting someone to burst from the front door. Instead, she saw someone standing at the edge of the porch light. He wore a dark ski mask and watched them go. They filed a report with Airbnb's safety team the following week. Airbnb opened a review of the listing. They also contacted the local parish sheriff's office. A deputy took their statement by phone. He didn't seem surprised. He said the area had a history of property disputes, and that he'd been called out there several times before. No further update was ever given. A few months later, in early 2020, the Creole cottage was removed from the listings. 3 months later, Marcus came across a local news article from a Louisiana newspaper. A family of 4 had traveled to the same general area for a weekend trip. Their car was found parked on a rural road. It was unlocked with the keys still in the ignition. There were signs of a violent struggle. The family was never found. Marcus didn't send the article to Diane. He still hasn't decided if that was the right call. There are places where the land is old and the people are older. Sometimes the rules that govern how humans treat each other don't quite apply. Sometimes someone notices you've overstayed your welcome. If you want more terrifying stories like this, then please subscribe and stay close. Follow us on social media for the latest updates, disturbing images, and sneak peeks.